In the meanwhile, I'll be introducing our other panelists as well. Now it's time to introduce the moderator for this session, Mr. Nilesh Jain. He's the co-founder, Two Nation Labs. He's a serial entrepreneur with over 20 years of experience in Silicon Valley. Currently, he incubates, mentors, and invests with entrepreneurs, solving a problem big enough impacting a billion lives. He has studied at Carnegie Mellon University in Stanford and Pittsburgh. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Nilesh Jain, who's the moderator for this session. Please come. Ms. Shomita, I would request you to kindly join us. A very warm welcome to you, sir. A very warm welcome, ma'am. Please take a seat. And now next, I would like to introduce our next panel member, Vishakha Singh. She is a pan-India actor, film producer, and we saw her in Fukre Returns, which is a hit at the box office. But she's also an entrepreneur. Her venture, IconicBot, makes celebrity chat boxes that connect icons with their fans. The 6-month-old company has already the key of celeb clientele. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Vishaka Singh on stage, ladies and gentlemen. A very, very warm welcome to you, ma'am. We really enjoyed watching Fukre Returns. Thank you, ma'am. Please have a seat. And now I would like to introduce our last panel member for this session, Nupur Mehta. She's the co-founder and CEO. Replenish is a Y Combinator-backed and women-run startup that makes ambulances more efficient by reducing 90% of the paperwork. And this idea was conceived when Nupur was interning at Stanford. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Nupur Mehta on stage. Very warm welcome to you, ma'am. With this, I hand over the entire discussion to our moderator, Mr. Nilesh. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be on a beautiful panel today. I'm the only person, male, who's going to be interviewing 3 beautiful ladies today. Our topic for the day is really talking about AI and data-driven AI. So we hear a lot of buzzwords around AI and what AI means. I think AI possibly means different things to different people, different things to different industries. And how do we build on top of this? It's going to revolutionize, it's going to change the way we think, the way we operate, the way we run different functions across different businesses. So with that, I'm going to ask Shomita a question about, AI is a big buzzword that's used in the industry. Can you talk a little bit about what AI would mean for the general public and what it means when we talk about AI in terms of daily livelihood, what it talks about, different job scenarios and what it will do or impact different jobs in the industry?
Thank you. I think AI has been around for a very long time, but recently, in the last 4 or 5 years, it's the buzzword, and it's in every field of work. When we think of AI, a lot of people think just robotics, and that's the common perception. People just kind of think about robotics, but it's in, in the mining industry, it's in the hedge fund industry, it's in farming being used, and obviously self-driving vehicles, Tesla, everybody knows about that. Even for the common people, it affects you in everyday life.
Also talk a little bit about, people are afraid about their jobs. And when we talk about AI and the automation, do you really think it's going to replace or it's going to augment or it's going to add on value to what they're doing today?
I'm a cyber optimist, so I don't think that AI is actually going to destroy the job market. They're always talking about it taking away jobs. It took away 50,000 jobs within the automotive industry, but you have 260,000 new jobs in the industry too. Nobody talks about that part. I think AI is here to augment us, to eliminate or at least lessen human error, and to help us in fields which is just mind-numbing for us. So we can free our mind, we can free our mind and we can think of better concepts and newer concepts.
Fantastic. So when we talk about AI and data in AI, one of the most common terms used is dirty data. And I'm going to ask Vishaka a question about, media and AI, how do they go along together? And then what does dirty data mean in terms of, in media, especially AI and media?
Let me just explain what we are doing. What we do is we make in Tamil and Telugu and English. So for us, it was a humongous task, now to sift through all that data and take out whatever is relevant to us. But the biggest learning or the key learning that we have taken from that is that we are now building a profanity filter, okay, which will block out all trolls and spam and abuses that usually trolls used to target celebrities with. And I think that's going to be a huge USP of our product. So for me, that would be it. That would be the dirty data part that we would be sifting out. And what is left would be the gold mine, hopefully.
So Nupur, you're operating in the healthcare space. Data is going to be one of the biggest things, talking about predictive AI and ML. What are your thoughts on the dirty data that exists today? Because not a lot of healthcare systems are streamlined in terms of capturing the right data. You talk about clinical, non-clinical, whichever data we may be talking about, right? So share some thoughts as you build your company around the healthcare space, and AI is going to be having a big impact, especially on decision making and outcomes from this data.
Sure. So there's a lot of companies that are still archaic in the way they're collecting data. For example, we work in the ambulance industry, and a lot of the processes that they still do are done on pen and paper. So the first challenge, even before we think about AI, is to onboard these people onto a platform that can structure that data in a proper manner. So that's what we have been doing. Over the summer, we launched a module that collected over 300 parameters for each portion of their day. And then we put that module through our learner and created data points, and we create predictions based on that. And for each new data that would come in later on. So that's like how we are applying AI and to help them promote, make decisions better in their daily decisions that they have to make based on their own historic data.
Thank you. So coming back to Vishakha, you're from a non-tech industry. And for a lot of the young entrepreneurs who are thinking about getting into tech and building companies, especially around decision making, where the outcomes are going to be important based on the input that you get. Share some of your experience going out and building this company in a space that's extremely difficult, called media, right? And then also on the flip side, a challenging space. You talk about building a chatbot, using a lot of the data and analytics around the chatbot data that you get, right? Share a little bit about your experience in the last 8 months or 10 months of your journey in trying to build this company.
Well, AI, I feel, is, as she said, there's this whole perception of robots and stuff that we can't imagine or fathom around it. But I've realized that AI is something that is affecting all of us. It's impacting all of us. You really cannot escape it. From setting the AC to a certain degrees, to watching the Facebook ads that pop up. It's all AI. So for me, I never really realized how much it had impacted me until I actually started shooting for Fukre Returns. And when I was shooting for the film, I was not able to engage with my fans on the official fan page, and I have about 1 million followers on my Facebook page. Now, as an actor, what happens is that we monetize our social media presence. You may not always have a film that's releasing, but brands come to us on the basis of our fan following. And that is why it was very crucial for me to have a chatbot. And so it's been interesting because there's just only one other player in the market, and it has not been really validated. But I don't know, I'd probably take up a lot of your time if I tell you the entire journey. But it's been great, and it's been really, really meaningful for us. And I've realized that with this chatbot, I can actually help all my film fraternity to actually make key decisions in terms of the ad spends or in terms of their spend that they have during film promotions and releases. We'd probably need a separate topic or separate time frame for us to discuss my entire experience.
So coming back to Shomita, we talked about what AI means to different people, right? Also, can you share a little bit more about your experiences when you work with the masses, right? And how technology can really transform. It need not be a threat to a lot of the, especially tier 2 and tier 3 cities in India, right? Where it doesn't need to be replacing jobs or replacing people or replacing work that they're doing, right? Can you share a little bit more about your experience in terms of when you go out to the masses and talk about the impact of technology and the decision making of the outcomes that follow through an AI process, right?
I think for when we do workshops with people for technology awareness, I think a lot of people, the first thing they feel is they're very scared of AI. It has always been that big word, like something out of a sci-fi movie. And so, so first thing we have to do is to tell them that it is already present. It's a part of our life. It's not going to threaten your jobs, and it's going to make it better. And I think slowly people have started to see it, and now they're more curious. They want to know what else is coming into the market, and now they're not so scared. I mean, I've seen the change over the past 2 years. And also, I think AI has boomed a lot in the last 2 years, because before you had to make your own framework. And now there's so many people are already giving you platforms, because they get the data from there. People, like Google, Microsoft, everybody's, Amazon, they are very happy to share their framework with you, because they get the data from you, which helps them build their AI, because it's all about collecting data and sifting through it, and it becomes better. The more data it collects. So now I think it's more reachable for people to start working in this.
I love the way you use the word framework, and, coming out from you, not being a tech person, right? I think that's a right word to use, because you look at different applications for AI, ML. We've got a lot of startups now. I'm going to make it more relevant in terms of the startups, and I'll come back to you. We've got a lot of startups throwing the buzzwords around AI and ML and not really understanding what it means and the importance of AI and ML. Also, I think the way we look at it from an industry perspective or from an ecosystem, tech ecosystem perspective, is we often make the mistake of saying we're going to replace human thinking, right? I think we are much further away from building the cognitive skills in an engine. Although Facebook have tried and they shut down their experiment, Google tried and they shut down their experiment. We're getting there. But when we talk about healthcare, and this is why I'm going to come back to you, you talk about AI and ML in healthcare. Are you thinking that AI is going to replace the decision-making power that a doctor would give in, or do you think that it's going to augment the process of giving more access or analysis on a huge data set to the doctor so he can make better decisions, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
Sure. I think we need to take a step back and understand what exactly, AI is already around us. Even if you're checking your email, the way it is categorizing if it's spam or not is also AI. If you look at your cars, if you remember driving even a few years ago, you had to pay so much attention. Now there's technologies like lane assist and all of that help you with that. So AI is already everywhere. And the challenge that we are facing now is how do you apply it to healthcare and kind of help with all this decision making. So it's not going to take away the human aspect of it. There's always going to be somebody telling it that this decision that has come out of it is right or wrong. It's just going to aid them get to the next step and look at more options, because even in a very specific field like medicine, for them to recognize that you have this particular disease takes a lot of knowledge that not one person has. And AI kind of automates and brings all these different data into one place and kind of use what decisions have been made before to suggest new decisions. It won't replace them completely.
Thank you. So to your point, I'll bring up another topic. Today what we see in terms of AI is a lot of supervised learning, which means the data that you get, the outcomes are going to be based on what we feed in. And that's why I keep coming back to having clean data versus dirty data. We work with a lot of data scientists. 80% of the time, the data scientist is spending time on is cleaning the data. So we're seeing a lot of systems now come in where we have more structured data, and then we're building on top of that algorithms to go do the learning process, right? In the healthcare, it could be cognitive learning or supervised learning. So I think coming back to media, you don't want a response for, a Shah Rukh Khan go to Salman Khan, right? So as you build this technology, what are the challenges that you see in terms of getting the input data and then building kind of the algorithms that are more relevant, especially in the media? This is not something that's going to take away jobs, but it's going to actually improve the level of service or the quality of service or the quality of response for the fans, if I get this right.
You probably have to rephrase the entire question again for me to...
So really the question is going to be, as you build the company around the AI learning, right, your data sets are going to be different. Right. How do you plan to build this? Because it's going to be more specific to different, stars, and the response is going to be in multiple languages, right? So your focus coming back in how the outcomes are going to impact you building the algorithms on the data set that you get, right? So it's going to be a huge learning curve for you to do that.
So, it's still early days for us. I mean, Siri took almost 10 years to be where it is right now. And we are dealing with big stars, small stars, big film production houses, new film production houses, various languages. Our chatbot is right now in Tamil, Telugu, English, Hindi, and we're then expanding into various other languages. So what we have is a lot of data. Now what we do with the data is the key. And so yes, it's going to be a challenge, but we already have some learnings. For instance, on Mercil, because it's a huge film with a huge superstar, we realized we were able to identify the demographics and the other details of the users, of the fans who were approaching the film. We're dealing with another actor down south who's an upcoming actor, so his fans are very different from the other films. So there are these little nuances here and there that we are discovering with each new project. What we are trying to do at the moment is kind of find some kind of a uniformity, and then probably develop our SaaS product, which will be a standardized product that people can use across the globe. So as I said, it's still early days, and I would probably be consulting you now to how to develop the algorithm further.
So we work with a few AI ML companies, and I also work with a healthcare company that we're trying to build. And this challenge keeps coming back to us: is when is the right time for us to say, we are building AI ML in terms of the data set that we've collected, especially in the healthcare. But also we were talking at the backstage about agriculture. And we looked at a company that was looking at predictive pest control mechanisms for the agriculture industry, where the farmer is actually going to be using the AI data and the AI predictive analysis based on data that's already available. So you look at the government data that is published for that region. I can start predicting when do I need to use pest control in my area, given the onslaught of pests coming into the area, given the weather conditions or the climate conditions. So coming back to Shomita, your point, right, is AI is going to be very pervasive in terms of the usage that we do. I think different industries and different people, different verticals will have different usage of the analysis and the data that we give. I'll come back to our questions. I want to open the floor up for any questions that our audience may have. Any questions from our experts or startup?
Regarding this crawling which is happening, how are you going to stop it? I just want to understand the logic and how are you going to do it?
So trolling, we can only have preventive measures. So what we have currently is find a whole lot of cuss words from various languages and put it in our profanity filter. But it's an ongoing learning process, and apart from that, trolling actually will stop if the trolls get, learn some manners and actually stop doing it to each, So on our part, we're just building a profanity filter in each language, and it has actually got down the troll rate quite a lot, because earlier I used to have something like, say maybe out of all the fans, there would be probably 1% would turn out to be trolls. Now it's gone down to probably a 0.5%. So obviously the profanity filter is working, but it's a learning process. It's an ongoing process at the moment. So what the chatbot does is it identifies any message that may have a cuss word and just blocks it out before, so that it doesn't reach me or any of the other celebs.
Yeah.
Is that also going to involve, online reputation management for, celebrities who are really keen on looking at that?
Absolutely. So what we are doing, we are actually getting a lot of sentiment analysis, artificial intelligence, all the buzzwords that you can think of in place with all the data that we have. And we will be using this depending on what the client's requirement is. So if the requirement is just to ensure that a small film reaches its target audience, then of course we use our, the AI to do that. Clients who want to do something in terms of the reputation management, say even influencers in the political arena can use that. Maybe a Donald Trump could do well with a chatbot that could help him salvage his. Yes, so that's what we're trying to do when we say we're trying to get sentiment analysis in, because we're also building a fan loyalty program at the moment, which is identifying the appreciative messages and sifting out all the abusive messages, and then trying to categorize the fans into, the A league fan, B league fan, C league fans, you know. So trying to do a whole lot of stuff with the data that we have.
And what about the security part of it and the privacy part of it? Because that's the major concern, I believe, on the social media.
True. So what happens is, we always mask the, like we have agencies that do the sentiment analysis for us, etc. So we mask the identity of the user and all their other details because you have to respect others' privacy, you know. And then we use only the data to understand and categorize it as per our needs.
Well, I personally think that we as, the human society still like the human touch. So I don't think AI is going to completely get away with the doctors, what the doctors are scared of. But definitely there will be progress, like IBM has come up with Watson. It's a very popular thing, and it does really good analysis and predictive things, which the doctors don't want, it is true. But I think a lot of it is also fear, that they will be completely done away with. But I don't see doctors being replaced completely in the next 30, 40 years.
There are markers for heart disease. Okay?
Yeah.
Today you get the heart checkup done. Those markers predict you're going to have a stroke or heart attack. Doctor would never like certain things when patient comes and tells him. When doctors say, "Abhi tum Google bologe ya main bolu?"
Yeah, that's true.
They do.
So this is happening in healthcare. I'm a healthcare guy mostly, so I can tell you this conflict is going on. I think you have layers of experience. You have been working on these data and all, and cutting with healthcare.
So I'll let.
Relevant in this?
Yes, and I'll give you my thoughts on that. I'll let Nupur kind of complete your thoughts first.
Sure. I think there's always a good side and a bad side to using a technology. And the way, the side we are focusing on is how we can help make this more prevalent in the decision making and make ambulance companies use their historic data to make better decisions. And that's what our focus is. There are always going to be a bad side of it, but it's what you encourage that will come out of it.
So I have a very different perspective to your question. We operate in the healthcare space, and we're pretty deep into this. I think as time changes, doctors will also evolve their practice. There is a reason why we call it diagnosis. It's not a solution, right? The doctor actually, in his mind, is going through different permutations and combinations of what the possibilities are. Human body is very complex in terms of even if you say that we've got certain biomarkers that can check and give you a diagnosis of what it could be. There are too many variables, and we are learning that. As you mentioned about IBM Watson, it's still not perfect. After looking at millions of cancer cases, they're still not there where they should be. I also think that as technology is coming in, doctors will evolve their practice. They have to look at technology as an assistant or as an assist to what their decision-making process is going to be. Today the conflict is there because the trust factor between the doctor and the patient isn't that high, right? Once you get to a point where the doctor is convinced that even though the patient's coming back, and I've seen this with a few doctors where, okay, you've done your Google research, right? And this is what you've got, but these are other things that you need to start looking at. And then we scratch our head and saying, how do you know this, right? We have to respect the profession, where they've studied over 15 years and they've mastered a certain area of a body function. We're not talking about a GP, right? We're talking about super specialization about certain aspects.
To your point, see, stage 3 to stage 4, and artificial intelligence will save this much of time.
Yeah.
But in many cases it doesn't happen.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So healthcare is which is dicing even artificial intelligence.
Yes, so you're absolutely right, and that's why we talk about outcomes. In healthcare, you want to talk about outcomes, not what is used for outcomes, right? I think a doctor is a tool. AI, ML is going to be another tool that is going to assist you in that decision-making process. At the end of the day, when the surgeon also opens the body, he still doesn't know. I mean, based on MRI, CT, there is a diagnosis that he's thought of, but when you actually open the body and you see it could be completely different, right? So we've seen cases that happens. So I think, moving to 2025, let's say, the profession of a doctor will also evolve where they will start looking at technology as assistant to what they're doing. And we are seeing that there's definitely a generation gap, from the super experienced doctors who don't believe that the technology is going to be an assistant to them. And we see younger generation of doctors more adopting to the technology, right? And it's also education to the patients, right? I think the trust factor has to improve. Of course, this is very controversial, especially now in India. I think our media is not doing the best job in looking at doctors in the right limelight. Just imagine the amount of press coverage, the bad press coverage that the doctor is getting. What happens to that profession over time? We'll not have the newer generation get into that profession. We are already short of lakhs and lakhs of doctors, right? And you look at all this media. Of course, not all apples are good apples, right? But not because of 1%, 2%, you want to tarnish the entire profession. So coming back to your question, I think both sides have to evolve. The profession of medicine has to evolve. They have to look at technology. And that's one of the reasons why medicine hasn't evolved in the last 15, 20 years across the world, right? And we're starting to see that happen. In India, healthcare is a big focus for a lot of investors, for a lot of VCs and a lot of startups, right? We're seeing doctors and the professionals come in and talk about technology, come in and talk about implementation of this technology. We're seeing a lot of startups come in the telemedicine space. We're seeing a lot of startups come in the pharmacy space, which is the online pharmacy, right? We're starting to see some startups come up in the entire platform play where they can manage their entire clinical and non-clinical work, right? Which doesn't exist today, which didn't exist. We are seeing in the West some of this happen, but it's still not as adaptive as it should be, even in the West. And I think India will do a leap in terms of that, adopting to that technology, especially with the younger generation of doctors coming in. Hopefully that answers your question.
I think the future is going to be more about techno-doctors who are more adept at using technology. And that would mean that the whole education system itself has to go through a drastic change.
Yes.
Because as you talked about, the doctors of the maybe a generation ahead of us, they will be more technically oriented right from the educational stage, because data is again going to be in the cloud, and therefore, there also the previous issue will come in, and there also how you determine it, how you use the data for artificial intelligence is going to play a very key role.
Yes.
This is for the whole panel. And Nilesh, you are the specialist across. Typically, I guess the caution, and would you agree, this is the question, would you agree the caution is already inbuilt into the term? It is artificial, right? It is yet to compete with natural intelligence which we have evolved with over a period of time. One. And two, it is coming up in stages. Like the human eye, what it can do in a jet while we are flying and trying to capture an object. There is hardly any other intelligence out there which can mark all those objects down there. You can even count sheep, at a certain height. Computers cannot do that effectively. So the question or suggestion in which I would want you to comment is, artificial is not entire, not against the doctor or not against the professional. It's just an assistance. It's a technology which has come out, which is developing, which people are actually using to be, enhancing the experience. Right? This is what I guess is the right approach. I don't know what you like.
Well, before the panel answers the question, this would be the last question that would be answered. I'm sorry about that. But the panel will be available for next 1 or 2 hours, so you can ask one-on-one questions.
Yeah. So why don't we do this, answer the question, then give your closing thoughts on the topic. Right? So with Nupur, you can start.
Sure. So completely agreed, right? It's also the thinking that you develop. It's like a whole new field which is going to evolve, and a lot of people need to be educated and kind of trust the system, and a lot of points that came across before. But sorry, what was your question? Like,
Artificial, people are trying to pose one against the other.
Yeah.
Real world, a doctor against what you capture through artificial intelligence.
Right.
I'm saying it's more to assist the doctor than to stand against the doctor.
So what I believe is it's going to change the relationship completely, and we both have to evolve. So that question kind of doesn't apply like we talked about with the healthcare question.
I have to say something here. we're talking about artificial intelligence competing with human intelligence, but artificial intelligence is just mimicking our way of thinking, and it is just doing that. So from the moment we are born, we're constantly collecting data. Everything we do, how we react. I mean, we are not even conscious of it, but we're constantly collecting data. So to say that artificial intelligence can compete with us already at this point is not fair, because they have only the set of data that we give them. They don't have that kind of breadth of knowledge that we do. Every single person does. And what we call instincts. Instincts is also just us collecting data and processing it in our head. So artificial intelligence hasn't come to that point yet, but probably it will someday.
I agree with you. So artificial intelligence is completely based on supervised learning at the moment. And let's not forget that we humans also make a lot of errors. So I think at this point of time, it's great that there are all these improvements happening and learnings happening. And I think artificial intelligence is only going to make our lives easier in the long run.
So with that thought, I think you said it right. It's going to make our lives easier. And coming back to your point, today AI is as good as what we are teaching them to be. The learning curve will start from now. So if you talk about 10, 15 years down the road, we'll see much more advanced AI coming through our decision-making process. But also, even in the long run, I still believe that AI is going to be assistive technology than pure decision-making technology, and different industries would take that in a different way. So you talk about driving a car, right? Today it's in the assistive mode, but tomorrow it may get into the primary mode of driving, and the human brain would be a secondary backup, right? You look at the airplanes, the entire process is an automated process in terms of flying a plane, right? I think healthcare, we're still further away in terms of doing that, and I say that because we still haven't got a good data set that's unbiased, diverse enough for us to look at different aspects of the outcomes in the healthcare space. So I think the impact is going to be significant. We have to look at AI in general across all industries as more assistive than the end decision-making process. It's going to be a journey for us, as a human race, to go teach something else to learn the way we think. And I don't think so we've even understood our body and our human brain of how it functions today. We're still learning new things of how our brain functions and how we adapt to different things when certain functions turn off, right? So I think teaching that to machines is going to be a while before we are there. But coming back to the startups, and our topic for the theme is, we see a lot of young people come in and talk about AI, ML, and the thought process that we see in this industry happening, I think will make tremendous progress in the next 10, 15 years in this space. So with that, thank you for your time. Hopefully we've answered your questions.
I'm really sorry about this awkward situation, but we really have time constraint. We are very thankful to the entire panel. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and let's thank our entire panel for being here and sharing the knowledge that they had. But it would be great if you can just stay back for a minute. Okay. You all have come here for the summit. Atiti Devo Bhava is what we say, a small token of appreciation for you all. We would like to give a small token of appreciation to Shomita, Goswami, Nilesh, Jain, Ms. Vishakha Singh, and Ms. Nupur, Mehta. Thank you so much for having a wonderful conversation over here on our panel. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, that is the Startup Investors Summit 2017. We have many more interesting topics coming up. Thank you.